Here's Mark and Suzanne revolutionizing radio.
Well, good Friday morning. Welcome to the Mark and Suzanne show. I am Mark. She is Suzanne. We're glad you joined us here. We have a jam-packed hour-long show for you today, a show you will not want to not participate in. And in fact, if you want to participate in it, you can give us a call at 717-467-1736. Get your fingers on those buttons and get ready to press, because we got a lot of ground to cover. We want to hear your opinion. And I think you're going to be provoked, as we try to do, as we revolutionize radio here. And folks, as we say every day, every time we start a show, radio needs some revolutionizing. It is a disaster out there. And the more, usually, Suzanne, when I get into my vehicle, I turn on NBA radio, because I just cannot take listening to Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity, because they're saying the same thing now they said back in 1988 when Rush Limbaugh started, and nothing changes. It's always the Democrats. And so they offer no solutions. They're just great at complaining. If you want real solutions, I'm glad you tuned in here to the Mark and Suzanne show. Again, I'm Mark. She is Suzanne, and we're glad to that you joined us here. Suzanne, off to you.
Yeah, I want to thank you. We have a lot of new listeners. We've been looking at our numbers behind the scenes here. We're doing something right, Mark. There is a thirst among the people, and I'm not even saying American people. We have listeners all the way in Europe and places I never would have imagined. People want to hear what we have to say, because there are options out there that you're just not getting. I get in my car, I'll put on Sirius radio or AM, whatever, and I'll sometimes take one for the team and listen to a little bit of Levin, just so I get some material. And when there's, for instance, a disaster or shooting, an act of terror, I'll put on Fox Radio Network, and I'm writing furiously, because everything, the way they're analyzing these problems, are always spot on, inaccurate, and it just contributes to the problem. But again, all their solutions are national. Their solutions for what's going on in the world is always the United States has to go in and fix it. All solutions, again, come in from Washington, D.C. I was listening to the show from my vacation when I was slacking off while you guys were holding down the fort. Thank you again. And it's just more of the same. So we try and tell people we have ideas that might make you feel uncomfortable, but they will make you think. And so many times I hear people say, I was wondering, who is this crazy broad? And I started doing some research, and lo and behold, you're right. People that have started by saying I was a lunatic come around, and they are some of our biggest advocates in sharing our word. And we've heard that story before, Mark. Sometimes there were some people very much against a message, punishing those for it, who actually came around. We want to welcome you and have you follow us here on Facebook. We are in the middle of getting a web page up and running. We're going to get a proper email list, a newsletter. We're going to take advantage of this momentum we're building up. I want to thank K-Talk Media. It's an AM station out here in the Salt Lake City area. They have me on the Inside the News show with Paul Jensen once a week. Typically, I'm on Tuesday mornings. I'm thanking those who have followed me from over there. Coming over, some of these stations like to talk about the news. And I said, you want to wax philosophical on what we're supposed to be, how we got to where we are, how can we get back, come over to Cerberus Radio News, where we are defending freedom and liberty from the flames of tyranny. And they are doing that. Follow Jeff Johnson, our producer in the studio. Follow my page, facebook.com, Suzanne Sherman, also the Wasatch Report radio show. And I share some of the other articles there that don't go here. Not for now. I think I've got about 20 more days in the Facebook penitentiary before I can get up, but we are on Twitter. We will share our commentary there as well. Check out our shows. We have an app on the Android platform, and you can hear all our shows. I listened to a lot of that when I was on my vacation. The bandwidth at these campgrounds is so bad, but we have a low bandwidth option. You don't want to hear the garbage on the radio, but you still want to learn something, be a little bit entertained. Just go to our app, click the radio code, stream, and enlighten yourself. Liberty Classroom, you want to learn some more? Tom Woods of Liberty Classroom has granted our listeners a $40 discount. $49 will get you a basic membership for 1 year. Go to libertyclassroom.com. We have no financial affiliation. We benefit when people understand principles of freedom and liberty. When you get to the checkout counter, enter the code CRN. Please share our shows if you like them. If there's one you really like, share with people. Tell people about the network. We're growing, but we need it. Thank you for our listeners for helping us in this endeavor. Mark, back to you.
Yeah, and indeed. And we are thankful to everybody who's tuned in today and who will listen to this on podcast or at some other point. This is how you grow a network. This is exactly, you're watching it evolve right in front of you. And our listenership continues to grow. Why? You have to begin to ask questions. Why? Well, I think it is because we're unafraid to challenge the status quo. The status quo is easy. Just to get on the radio and start carping about, Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or whoever, and just point out the obvious. That's easy to do. I can do that with my hands tied behind my back and a patch over one eye. It'd be no problem to do that. We come on the radio here and try to both highlight problems, but then offer genuine solutions. This is a really difficult mountain we're trying to climb because we tend to respond almost to the tyranny of the urgent. Everything needs to have a national solution today. We don't have the ability, unlike the leftist Marxists in these United States, we don't seem to have the ability to have a long view of things. It's today. We've got to resolve this conflict today, right now. And well, I would love to be able to do that. Look at how successful the Marxist leftists have been in this country, having a long view of things. Folks, they have just about everything at this point. They have media, they have entertainment, they have education, both higher and public education. They have large numbers of elected offices, both at the national, I refuse to say federal, because there's nothing federative about this relationship between the states and Washington, D.C. They occupy large number of elected seats in the House and the Senate. They occupy large numbers of seats in the legislature. And by the way, when I talk about leftist Marxist, I am not talking about Democrats only. Don't think for a minute there aren't Republican leftists out there. So one of the big mistakes people make is define our problems by Democrat versus Republican. And somehow just getting ours into power resolves things.
Hey,
they
Mark,
have had a long view for literally generations, and they have been wildly successful. We conservatives, whatever that actually means, if you want to use that just to describe the difference between them and the leftist Marxists, we own almost nothing. We occupy none of those seats. And if we do, they're isolated, one here, one there, one there, one there. These guys own California. They own Washington. They own Oregon. They own the upper Midwest. They own the Northeast. They're about to own Texas. Why? Because they have a long view of this problem. We, the Democrats or the progressive leftists, create a problem, and we focus all of our energies on that one problem and never have an actual philosophical basis for a long-term strategy. Well, here on this show, the Mark and Suzanne show, we are going to offer long-term strategies because that is actually what is needed right now. We have to look beyond the next election and say, how do we restore? How do we restore that which was lost? Because it has been lost, folks. The progressive leftist Marxists are on the move, and they've been on the move for generations, and they're not done. We better figure out a longer-term solution to push back on them. And that's not because I'm afraid of conflict right now. But right now, we have a major problem in the conservative and certainly the Christian conservative movement when it comes to even understand our rudimentary ideas of our foundational governing principles. We had a whole show this week about the Constitution. And is it part of the problem? I think we've made a very strong case on the show here that it is part of the problem, because it actually may be de jure. We may not be suffering from a de facto use of the Constitution. We may actually it may be working just as it was designed. And we made the case last week on this show, or this week on this show. We quoted from Article 1, Section 8, the necessary and proper clause. We combined after the comma with Article 2, the executive branch's appointment powers. And voila, guess what you might have there? You might actually have a federal government that can grow, that can do things. Now, what do? They grow agencies. And then what does Congress do? It abdicates its lawmaking responsibilities to the federal agencies, who then create regulations, not laws, but they're called regulations, but they carry the force of law. Break a regulation and see what happens to you. You're going to lose something. So we properly identified that maybe this document that we so cherish and believe that's where the solutions are, maybe it actually is contributing to the problem. You can't. Now, my Christian conservative friends, Mark is anathema. You can't say that. They almost want to string me up. I'm a heretic. I probably hate God, because I would even dare hint that there might be a problem there. My good friend Mike Meharry might think I'm dumb. Mike.
We're in good company.
That's right. And Suzanne.
Patrick Henry felt the same way. 3 states didn't want to ratify. Rhode Island didn't even want to show up. Mark, earlier you mentioned progressive Republicans here in the state of Utah. We're about to put one in as our new senator. There's no doubt in my mind Mitt Romney's going to win. He's not getting my vote. I actually rejoined the Republican Party so I could try and get him knocked out at the primary. And it was very close. Dr. Bobby Kennedy almost beat him in the primary. Mitt was not expecting to, I think, have to make it to the primary. I think he just assumed, because of the power of the LDS Church, he would get the nod at the Republican convention. That wasn't the case. You also mentioned federalism versus nationalism, and the words now are considered to be synonymous. One of the things I like to do to try and take the pulse of where people are getting their information, what's formulating their ideas, what's the simplest way people can look up a word these days? Nobody has their dictionaries on their shelves anymore, but you can go, you start typing in dictionary.com pops up. And federalism and nationalism, or federal and national, are defined in there as synonymous. And we interpret those as synonymous: the national government, national parks, the federal government, federal agencies, that all mean the same thing. James Madison, and to the founding and ratifying generation, they were not synonymous. In fact, they were anathema. They were the opposite. So what James Madison said was, we have a government that is federal and not national in nature. So meaning the central government was limited in power. The legislative branch was supposed to be the strongest branch of the 3. As you mentioned earlier, they have abdicated their role during a State of the Union address. I remember former President Obama standing up and saying, where Congress fails to act, I will. That is in blatant violation of the Constitution. Everybody in that room took an oath to uphold and defend. What did Congress do? Unanimously, they stood up, gave him a standing ovation, and cheered at their own irrelevance. They thought that was okay. They should have ordered the sergeant at arms to take him out of the room in handcuffs for that statement. Yet we had another, I forgot who the guy was. Was it Joe Wilson, who called Obama a liar during the State of the Union address? The one guy not lying in the room was excoriated in the media for being disrespectful to a man that is standing there spewing bold-faced lies to the American people, just like William Jefferson Clinton did with his little escapades. And he lied. It's okay. The left can get away with whatever they want. Hillary Clinton has the backing of the corrupt FBI, the corrupt DOJ, and we are supposed to cheer on the very document that enabled this very disastrous situation. We are not free when the government applies one set of laws to corrupt criminals if they are politically powerful and another to the rest of us.
This is such a truth there, and this is part of the success of the progressive leftist Marxist movement that has been wildly successful. They are different, folks. And if you think you can appeal to them, this is one of the great problems I have with just average citizens that try to argue with leftists. They actually think leftists are reasonable. And if I just make a reasonable argument, the leftists will their light will go on and they'll say, oh, you know, you conservatives are right. Folks, you need to understand who these people are. They will murder you. They do not have a problem with violence. They will use the story of Marxist Leninism and leftist ideology since its inception has been one of murder. It will murder political opposition. It will kill you. They will use violence against you. They are doing it now. My gosh. They are using violence against the most innocent person in the United States right now, a baby in a womb, who is the most vulnerable human being in this country right now. They are using government to allow violence against it. It is going to be ripped apart today. That is progressive Marxist leftist ideology in play. We've got recent examples here, contemporary examples of leftists going crazy. Now, I don't want to get into the merits of the Donald Trump administration, but they have ignited some violent attitudes and approaches out there. We got a lady running a car into somebody who had a Trump Make America Great bumper sticker on her car. Folks, these people, when ignited by their leftist Marxist ideology, are violent. They will use force to kill you and to suppress you and to ultimately control you. I mean, who was it? Suzanne, you may remember the famous, I think it was Wall Street Journal or New York Times commentator back in the 1920s and said, we're okay with murdering 10% of a population. He was a leftist Marxist communist. Oh gosh, it's ready to keep, Jeff, if you can remember, help me out here. But he's on record. He's on a film with audio saying, we communists are willing to murder 10% of the population.
Well, we're hearing that now. They want to depopulate the earth. This is part of the UN agenda. The funny thing is, and you see some of these groups on Facebook where they're ranting and raving, saying that humans are parasites and they're destroying the planet. But you never see one of them say, you know what, in the interest of the greater good, I will sacrifice my life for the spotted owl. I will sacrifice my life to combat global warming. It's always, I am willing to use the force of government and the point of a gun, the end of a gun, to get your money away from your pockets and your family to contribute to some mythological foundation that's somehow going to stop this project. I had somebody when that was apoplectic when Donald Trump pulled us out of the Kyoto conferences. He recognized it for the sham that it was. Kudos to him. And somebody was saying, well, it's a step in the right direction. That's the best they get. It's a step in the right direction. No, it really isn't. How is punishing American taxpayers for a global problem of pollution in the world and benefiting and giving grants to the biggest polluters, from whom we are borrowing money, by the way, going to solve this problem? And this is typical. We're seeing all these ludicrous bits of legislation now about plastic straws. Well, so rather than allow the free market economy to have somebody come up with biodegradable straws, we're just punishing those that are using them. Plastic stirrers now, straws. This idea actually came from a 9-year-old in California, and in their infinite wisdom, the legislators in that state thought, well, we're going to make it illegal to give out these straws. So again, with the plastic, we're seeing the worst offenders are, I think, India, Latin America, and China. The plastic's coming through their rivers, getting into the ocean. Clearly, the only policy that makes sense is for the American taxpayers to have to pay a tax on plastic. It's absolutely insane. And what we're seeing, you mentioned the violence of the left. A woman rammed a gentleman's car. A 25-year-old woman rammed a man's Jeep with her car and labeled him a racist after spotting a Trump bumper sticker on the trunk of this man's car. If you look at the picture, this man looks to be of color to me, and she's not. So we have these virtue signaling social justice warriors using their violence to go after those whose ideas don't conform with their own. They did not get their way in this last election. Remember, when Obama was elected, the rhetoric shifted to, you lost, he won, let's come together and work with our president. Well, they didn't get their way this time. What are we hearing now? Resist. And we have the, the wrists, the fists in the air. And here's this woman here. I'll read from the article here. It was a Daily Mail in the .co UK. A Massachusetts woman was arrested. And this is interesting, the circumstances under which she was arrested too, for ramming a man's Jeep after being enraged by his bumper sticker. Chloe Wright appeared in court on Monday, pled not guilty to a charge of assault with a dangerous weapon. You get charged and convicted with that in California. That's a lifetime suspension of your driver's license. She also faces charges of vandalizing property and leaving the scene of the property damage. The incident took place on June 30th, but she was only taken into custody a month later after being pulled over in a traffic stop. There was a general warrant issued for her arrest. The victim said he was driving in his Jeep on the evening of June 30th and was stopped at a red light when the driver began honking his horn. At the next red light, he could hear the female driver behind him screaming something. Concerned that there might be something wrong, he pulled over and stepped out of the vehicle. The other driver asked him, "Did you vote for Trump?" The man said he told the woman he did, which allegedly triggered the woman's violent response. I get out, and all of a sudden I hear, "You're racist," and a bunch of cuss words. At that point, he switched on the camera on his phone and recorded the incensed vehicle driving in his SUV. Again, you can play this on the website. It's dailymail.co UK, and you can play the article. There's no reason for us to play what she was saying here. But this is the thing. They will not tolerate even an image, a message with which they do not agree. I had to take an anti-Obama, it wasn't foul, it wasn't violent, off of my vehicle when my son was getting his driver's permit. A gentleman came up to his window, his side, I was in the car with him, and started knocking on the window. To me, that's getting in your personal space. And knocking on the window and telling him to roll his window down. And I stepped on the running board and I said, "Sir, can I help you?" And at that point, he started asking what that bumper sticker meant. And I told him to have a nice day, and we left. But I took that off because I didn't want something happening. This woman could have caused an explosion in this vehicle. What if this had been a mother with a baby in the back? We already know how the leftists feel about babies, born or unborn. So let's just see something really, really bad could have happened. People are saying violence is going to erupt soon. It has, people. Yeah. Every instance of their behavior leading to violence is absolutely swept under the rug. Look at Sarah Brown getting thrown out of a restaurant. What about Mike Pence when he couldn't even go see a performance of Hamilton without getting shouted down? We don't play by those rules. We are still able to take this high road, but it's costing us. We are being shouted down on Facebook. That's what got me in jail. I was cussed at. I was told I was an effing backwards Trump person. There was no indication to think that I voted for Trump other than the fact that I disagreed with this woman's allegation that it's okay to murder the unborn. So I posted what she had put on my page. I got banned. We are playing by their rules in their playground. So we are held to a standard that they are not. Look what happened to Roseanne Barr. I don't agree with what she said. I don't really care one way or the other. But now look at who the New York Times just hired as a technical writer. An Asian woman with a plethora, a history of anti-white tweets and sentiments. Try doing that if you're white with anti-black or anti-whatever other person of color, and see how far you get. Why is this woman still having a job? Roseanne Barr isn't.
I think it's really important. This discussion is really important for those of you who are going to engage in this fight. You need to understand that leftist, Marxist, progressives have no problem with hypocrisy. You're not going to appeal to their better senses when you say, oh, you're being a hypocrite. They don't care about being a hypocrite. They have a goal. They have an objective. Whatever is necessary to reach that objective, they will do, including kill you. Now, I did find the quote I was looking for. It's from George Bernard Shaw, and it's from a videotape. I'll put it over on my Facebook page, actually, when we're done with the show. You can go to Facebook/Mark Kreslins. I'll put the video up there. I'm going to read it to you real quick. It's going to be a little bit choppy, so hang in there with me, because I'm not going to put the volume up because I don't think you'll hear it very well. But I'll read what George Bernard Shaw is saying on video here. He says, "You must all know half a dozen people at least who are of no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth, madam. Just put them there and say, sir or madam. Just put them there and say, sir or madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence? If you can't justify your existence, if you're not pulling your weight in the social boat, then if you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps even a little bit more, then clearly we cannot use you in this big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive. And because life does not benefit us, and it can't be of very much use to you, here's the solution. Just end your life. Here's George Bernard Shaw saying, we are going to make the value decisions based on your production, what you contribute to our utopian communist society. And if we find that you're of no use, we're going to put your life to end. We're going to end it. These people who could say things like that don't get bothered by being hypocrites. So you can spend all day you want on Facebook claiming that, you know, Jim Costas and these other guys are hypocrites. See, Mark, they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites. So what? They don't have any problem. If you think you're going to appeal to their moral sensibilities, and you're going to say, oh, you know, Jim Costa is or whatever is the guy's name. What's his name, Suzanne, the guy over CNN?
Acosta. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember. But, you know, he's a hypocrite. You know, he's not holding himself to the same standards. When Obama was president, he never treated Obama. Do you think he goes home and says, I never thought about that. I'm treating Donald Trump differently than I treated Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I'm going to go on the TV network tomorrow and tell everybody I'm sorry. Do you think he's actually bothered by that? No, this is what I'm talking about with having a long view, a long range plan. When their God is government. Their God is totalitarian power over people. They like it. They enjoy controlling people. So if you think you can appeal to their rational side, they don't have one. So that woman who rammed her car into that guy, do you think she's rational? Do you think it was a rational decision that this woman's capable of making, sitting in her car, getting so enraged at a bumper sticker that she rams her car? Do you think you're going to take her out and say, you know, what was going through your mind? You probably should rethink your strategy here. That is her strategy. That was it. She did her strategy. I'm going to exert violence on somebody.
Look,
if
we had
in this game. If you're going to be in this fight, you better know how to fight. You can't take, what's the old saying, Suzanne? You don't bring a knife to a gunfight or something like that.
Sure.
We tend to bring knives to not just a gunfight, a howitzer fight.
We bring pillows. We bring pillows. You know, we have an incident where a leftist said, "Are those Republicans down there?" When he found out they were, he opened fire. Is anybody talking about this anymore? If it had been I don't know, let's see, a white guy that had a social media picture of a Virginia battle flag somewhere buried in Facebook, ignore the stars and stripes flag he also had that shot, let's see, black people going to church. For once, leftists cared about churchgoers. The only time they renewed the attack started in 1861 on all things Southern. And it has continued. The statue toppling, the school renaming, the highway renaming, tearing down any sort of monument that they find offensive, erecting new ones. For crying out loud, which was one of those, Oregon or Washington has a statue, I think, of Lenin up there. So this is where we are. We know that the violence is okay with them. And the rhetoric shutting us down. I think John Stossel just did a show on how Jordan Peterson isn't even allowed to speak in his own classroom. They storm the classroom and just shout him down. We've seen that nutcase in the school campus where she's screaming at the top of her lungs because there's just a guy with a Make America Great hat. We see the hats getting pulled off people, that kid getting assaulted, his hat stolen, dumped with soda on him. When are they going to start murdering people over Make America Great Again hats?
And I'll tell you, don't think for a minute that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and these leftist Marxist progressives in the House and the Senate and in your legislatures don't embrace these ideas. They just can't say them. They can't politically say them right now. They let the people like the woman who ran the car, the guy who ripped the hat off the kid's head. They let them do the work and be engaged in the violence right now. And for their political interests, they may actually condemn it and say, oh, that was probably an overreaction. But don't think down deep in their heart they aren't like George Bernard Shaw, and who would stand by and allow the murder of millions of people. Folks, the evidence is right in front of you. Every time Roe comes up as a discussion item, whether in the House, the Senate, in political commentary, the leftists are defending the murder of babies. And again, these are not rational people. So now we're using very verbose discussion phrases today, seeming like we're drawing lines and saying, well, if they're going to be violent, we should be violent back. No, there actually is a solution. And this is why it's so important to show earlier this week. You want you want a pseudo solution? Keep trying to take back America. Keep trying to force your ideology on all 50 states. You want to be totally marginalized into oblivion? Don't forget, as I started the show, they own everything right now. They own media. They own entertainment. They own education. They own most of government. If you don't understand the fight you're in, and you think you can fix all that by taking back America, and that's going to be your drive for the next however many years the good Lord gives you on this planet, you're not actually part of the solution. You're actually making the solution nearly impossible to execute because there is a solution. There actually is a solution. But if by God, it's got to be all states or no states, you're part of the problem. You shouldn't be listening to our show because that's not our angle here. Our angle actually finds its authority in the very foundation of this union in our history. The 20 most important words uttered in our American history are found in the Declaration of Independence. That to secure these rights, governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. That turned the world upside down. A new form of government came on the planet when those words were inked on that parchment. a new form that said we are not going to be ruled by a power that is away from us that we cannot control anymore. We are going to self-govern. We don't have that right now. Right now, we are being ruled by a progressive leftist Marxist ideology that has taken education, entertainment, media, government, and runs it all and controls you. Well, the solution to the problem we find is reinstituting our foundational governing principles. Saying in the states that we can say it, we are not consenting to you governing us. You, Washington, D.C. We are not consenting to you forcing us because of the decision of 7 of 9 politically connected lawyers in black robes saying you will allow the murder of babies in your state. You will, by edict, allow the murder of babies in your state. The solution is not all states. The solution is some states using our foundational governing principles of saying, we don't consent to you. And because we don't consent to you, we will not obey you. We will defy you. It's already happening. On the recreational marijuana issue, the states are right now, 32 states are in open defiance to the federal government. They are saying, we don't consent to your stupid federal drug laws, and we are going to disobey you. Folks, that is the solution. You don't see Colorado, you didn't see Colorado running to Washington, D.C. and saying, will you pass legislation that forces all the other 49 states to do what we want to do? No, it's been worked out over a decade or two, state by state by state by state. That's the solution, folks. The leftists are smart. They get control of government, including the judiciary. And then they use politically connected lawyers in black robes to force their will on you. And then all 50 states eventually through the Supreme Court. Look at Obamacare. And the list can go on and on and on. The solution, folks, is decentralizing power based on consent of the governed. In Oklahoma, 67% of the people here would abolish abortion. But they have been told that the only way to do that is by getting some magical Supreme Court justice out there in Washington, D.C., or somehow Congress decides to end abortion in all 50 states. And yet, focusing on that as a solution, what happens every day here in Oklahoma? Right now, it's 9:37. The abortion mill's been open for an hour and a half. 2-3 babies been butchered here already. When we hold the power to stop it today. This is the genius of those foundational governing principles. We have the ability to withdraw our consent. Oklahoma. And say, no, we will not do that. And we don't care what you say. Whether they have constitutional authority or not. Do you think that Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry and Sam Adams said, you know, I wonder if the English unwritten constitution allows us to do this. I wonder if the king will be in support of us declaring independence. No! They actually had the courage of their convictions, and they threw down in that document and said, we are free and independent states, no longer under your rule. They spent a decade appealing within the construction of their system. Will you please stop tyrannizing us? Will you please stop taxing? Will you blah, 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 blah. Will you please stop? The king's response, no, 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 no. In fact, it's going to get worse. What have we been doing for 45 years with abortion? Oh, will you please stop making us murder children in our states? Please, please, Mr. Supreme Court Justice, will you please stop making us murder children? We're posers compared to the founders. We're
Mark,
posers.
When you mentioned earlier about the violence, I will say to you that, yes, politically, they have come out and advocated it. Remember, Tim Kaine said, we need to take the fight to the streets. They're saying resist. They're saying confront these people. Maxine Waters has been saying this. They are upping the rhetoric. So yes, it is politically expedient for them to do so. And, you know, with regards to, you were talking about Colorado, California, I think it was at 26 or almost 30 states have now defied federal law. Well, people will say, well, we have the Supreme Court, you know, Roe versus Wade that makes the states can't do it. Guess what? There was a state coming out of California, Raich, where our good old originalist, Antonin Scalia, upheld federal marijuana laws, saying they were part of a greater program. What program was he talking about? The also unconstitutional Drug or Controlled Substances Act. So we have these illegitimate laws. However, Roe is gospel. It is an 11th commandment set in stone, but we're going to ignore Raich because we want our pot. And I was just recently in Colorado and I saw these dispensaries everywhere. And you can just go in there, be treated like an adult, get what you want. I've heard people that are against legalization or regulation of marijuana saying, oh, Colorado smells like one big pot. You know, it's one big pot. I never smelled it once there. I never smelled it once. I never witnessed anybody smoking it. In fact, there was one campground where we stayed that said, we recognize that it is illegal, or that is illegal. It is legal, I'm sorry, in Colorado. However, our campground, it is private property. We do not allow it. And that's entirely their right. I didn't see, by the way, Colorado authorities coming down these people's throats, getting after them for denying people a right to maybe act like adults on their private property. But Colorado does have a commission that went after a baker who decided he did not want to put a pro-homosexual message on a cake. He was happy to bake a cake for these individuals. He just said, because of my faith, I'm not going to put this on the cake. Can we all get along and agree with that? Oh, heck no. No, we cannot do that. So we're seeing, oh, also another thing I saw when I went to Mesa Verde National Park, when you get to the visitor center, there's a picture of a leaf of the devil's lettuce with a circle with a line through it that says, while you are on federal property, federal drug laws control marijuana is not allowed on these premises. So we've got a huge national park carved out where something legal in the state of Colorado is prohibited, again, by the federal government under the auspices of unconstitutional federal drug laws. The Controlled Substances Act is absolutely unconstitutional. You don't have to be a user of marijuana to support their right as a sovereign entity. So, you know, why are they so quick to capitulate on behalf of babies? I did see one bumper sticker in Colorado, actually, and it said, have the courage to defend the unborn. I looked around to see if there were key scratches in the paint to see, because, you know, that whole instance that got me banned from Facebook, my original comment to somebody saying, oh, it was a canvas bag. I went to Planned Parenthood and all I got was a health exam, you know, listed the whole thing, everything but. And my comment was, you're very fortunate because millions don't survive the experience. And that set the whole thing off. And when I shared a very hateful comment to me, I'm the one that got banned, not the person that posted it to me, but I did. So we realized we have to be very circumspect and quiet almost in the way we try to challenge these people, even trying to do it diplomatically by raising that point. These people were, I was all of a sudden a Trump supporter. They just absolutely lose their minds where they're erupting in violence. And there are ways to avoid this. Like you mentioned, Mark, I really want to encourage people to read Rethinking the American Union for the 21st Century, Donna Livingston. Great book. I'm going to start going through these and bringing in chapter by chapter. And what we see is a marginalization of rational thought, rational thinkers under the labels of racist. Here's a great book here. Another one, Government by Judiciary, Raoul Berger. He was talking about how a rogue federal judiciary via the 14th Amendment has really systematically dismantled our federalist system and turned it into one national one. The unfortunate consequence being the murder of over 60 million babies. He was so effective in dismantling the attacks of those that were against what he had to say in this book, his detractors, that they abandoned logic and then just went to the attacks of racists, misogynists. Clearly, if you were against the Affordable Care Act, remember there was a New York Times bombing, and Bloomberg said it was probably a Tea Party member who didn't want affordable care. Where are they getting this from? There is no logic. It is all lunacy, and we have to be very clear in our history, and that's why I like what we do. We present arguments here that are irrefutable, and we are not against any certain groups, be it sexual orientation, religion, gender, national origin. If you go with what we're trying to teach people, everybody will benefit. Yes. And they've been so successful. The only debate we have left now available to us is the degree of socialism that we are going to have.
And it will be inflicted on all 50 states. And don't think for a minute. And this is why, if you have got to learn, if you're listening to this program, to the Mark and Suzanne show, to Jeff's show, to other shows on the network, you have got to learn what state sovereignty is. You've got to learn our historic foundational governing principles. Everything Suzanne just said is spot on. We source our arguments in our factual history that is beyond dispute. Those words are written on that document. You can type in Declaration of Independence. You can see I'm not making it up. Though there is no United States without those words. None. It's not here. We're speaking the King's English. We're still bowing to the Queen. But we aren't, because they wrote those words. Now, those words that they died for, don't dishonor their sacrifice by ignoring those very words they bled on those battlefields for. You know, we tend to take this nostalgic walk through history, Suzanne, where we'd like to go visit monuments and where we like to see all the knowledge about these various battles in 1776 through 83. But the reality is men and women died. They took musket rounds in their thighs, in their chests, in their heads. They were run through with sword and sabers. They left their blood on those battlefields for what? For an idea that we could be free from the king and we could self-govern. Well, what have we done? We've created another king. It's just 545 of the little megalomaniacs in Washington, D.C., where they tell you to jump and socialism is coming. It's just the degree of socialism that's coming, and they're going to tell you you're going to do it unless you come up with a solution. And the solution is sourced right in our organizing principles. Did we organize as a monolithic nation in 1776 through 83? Did what come out of that battle a monolithic blue blob of not 13 separate and sovereign states, but just one big America? Is that what came out of there? If you think that's what came out of there, then you have no clue about history. And you shouldn't be in this fight. They came out as 13 separate and sovereign states. You want to know how I can prove that without a shadow of a doubt? Go read the Treaty of Paris, Article 1, from that the king signed and acknowledged these 13 separate and sovereign states he was engaged in a war with. They acted as 13 separate and sovereign states. Go read Article 2 of the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution. Folks, this is beyond dispute. This is not Mark Kreslin's opinion and Suzanne Sherman's opinion. This is a historic fact. You cannot deny it. We organized as 13 separate, distinct states that had their own constitutions. Many of them did work their own denominational structure into their constitutions. This is what we need to get back to. You see, folks, there is moral superiority to federalism. The left loves to take the word diversity and say, oh, those conservatives, they hate diversity. The greatest way to advance diversity is to advance federalism or confederation and allow the states, or the states take back control of their states from the monolithic Washington, D.C. that is insistent on making everybody the same. You all will obey us. You all will do what we tell you to do. And if you don't, we're going to threaten to murder you, take your property, or throw you in jail. That's what the left wants to do. That's why they're focusing on getting federal power through the court system and through elected office. Because once they get the totality of it, folks, socialism's coming. They're openly debating it right now. We are actually having.
I think what's left is how much or how little we're going to have. And look, if your kids are in the public schools, if you use the fire departments, if you are using the public health system, you are already using socialism. You're embracing socialism. And the only matter now is left to debate is how much do we really want? There is an article that I was reading that even says, this was in the New York Post, and the article is entitled, "Like It or Not, America is Now Seriously Debating Socialism." We have been for some time. Here's their conclusion, and you're going to like this, of how we can fix this. Republicans need to continue to develop and push their own ideas to reduce healthcare costs and adjust to the new reality where socialism doesn't simply represent a laugh line, but a battle that needs to be won. So what they're saying here is the Republicans need to come up with their own form of socialism that we want socialism with an R in front of it. And the Republicans are just as guilty of these leftists or these big government progressive, I'll just call them progressive ideas. And the ones that I really call out are the big the national reciprocity supporters. We want national reciprocity. We should be able to take our guns across, but it's not constitutional. Yeah, but we got a pro-gun administration. We're going to do this because it's our chance. Well, you know what? You're just as bad as those that were getting the things done that they wanted to do when Obama was in office. Now is our chance to get the Affordable Care Act passed. Now is our chance because we are in charge. And so you're just as bad. If you cried out about the Affordable Care Act, but now we're demanding national reciprocity, guess what? As Jeff is saying here, they are two sides of the same Marxist coin. That's what makes us very unpopular with a lot of people. I go on K-Talk Media, and a lot of people wax philosophical about the Constitution and how we need to get back to it. And by the way, these gosh darn sanctuary states, they need to knock that off. Well, going back to what you said, Mark, about immigration, that was a matter left to the states as sovereign entities. Yep. And I try to explain that is different from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4, a uniform rule of naturalization. They're completely different things. But what the federal government, the national government has done, has been to give these benefits that go across all the state lines to this continental landmass. So you can come here in contravention to, even if it's at state sovereign borders, you will be encouraged to cross them and to get your benefits wherever you go. A wall isn't going to help until we stop this insane behavior. And, you know, when we also have to look at now who's controlling the message, we have a Mexican billionaire who's become the major owner of the New York Times. Now we have the New York Times has hired an openly racist technical writer who is calling out the death and the cancellation of white people. Roseanne Barr loses her job for one tweet. This woman has a history of them. What we're also forgetting is since this gentleman, I think Carlos Slims is his name, has purchased the majority share of the New York Times, they have changed, and their rhetoric now is open immigration, open borders, pro-illegal immigration. And this is another case of how the media controls our message. So we really have a battle, folks. This is why it's so important for you to share our message. Get your membership to Liberty Classroom and understand that we are not saying, with regards to immigration, for instance, when I go on K-Talk, well, you know, obviously the federal government now has to defend our national borders. Yes, because we have become one big continental landmass, United States of America. By design, that makes it practical and pragmatic for the federal government to regulate this so we could never go backwards. I find myself asking, how much further down this road are we going to go? Are we going to get to the point where you are going to subject yourself to physical harm if you wear a hat that these leftists don't like? If you have a bumper sticker to which somebody disagrees, they can put on their vehicles whatever they want. I've been in California and seen openly hostile, just sticker bombed cars about hating Republicans, hating Christians, no problem.
No.
But you have one they don't like, you will get bammed, or rammed by somebody with another vehicle. You're going to be subject to assault. Look at how these people, and police officers, by the way, were standing down at some of the violence. When Milo was speaking in Berkeley, the police were standing down. The police standing down. Look at the violence at the pro-Trump rallies during the presidential election cycle. When Obama was elected, look at Eric Holder, his first day. We are a nation of cowards for not talking about race. We were all kind of getting along. What did we start seeing? I said, watch out, we're going to see violence. We started seeing the flash mobs. We started seeing the knockout game. We started seeing an increase in black on white violence, and this rhetoric is only increasing it. And now these people are able to keep their jobs. In fact, I submit to you, they're going to be rewarded for it. I bet this woman was probably hired as a basis of her tweets. So one thing I suggest is people, and I hate to say it, you can't have any of your philosophical ideology out there for others to see. Your first goal is to survive. So what do we do now at this point?
Well, and this is where we offer these solutions. I think we got a window. I think we have a narrow window here, but it's going to take organizing in ways that we're uncomfortable organizing, not because it's bad. We just don't know how to do it. We just have never, we always think about getting Republicans into office. The bottom line is you're going to need to learn to organize in your state. You are going to need to become a community organizer. You individual, the people listening here, you're going to need to collect other people in your state, because at the end of the day, you need tens of thousands of people to go to a polling booth and vote for a candidate like we ran down here in Oklahoma, Dan Fisher, who said, when I'm governor, I'm punching Washington, D.C. right in the face. And I got a 6-point plan to tell you exactly how I'm going to do it. He was above board the entire way, and 36,000 people, nearly 36,000 people, went to the polls on that day and said, we want some of that. You need to find those 36,000 people in your state. Stop thinking, I don't even care what happens in Washington, D.C., other than I kind of have to pay attention because I'm required to on the show to know what's going on. But there's no solution there. Try to release any belief you have in your mind that the solution comes through Washington, D.C. Work within your state. Start an organization, build one. Contact us over at Free the States, and we'll help you get an organization off the ground there. We have got to organize in our states and then use our state political apparatus to do exactly what the recreational marijuana guys did and say, no, we're just not doing this anymore. There's no way you're going to get bombed. Stop worrying about the Lincoln legacy. Don't worry that the fourth ID is going to come in and start occupying your state. Don't. Just organize in your state. Learn your state constitution. Learn your state political process. Find principled candidates that will actually stick to their word like Dan Fisher would have. Find those people. Run them. Support them. Send them $100. Help them in their campaigns. Learn how to be engaged in the political process in your state. Folks, that is the solution. And if I don't see more of you doing it, I'm coming on here and talking about NBA radio. Carmelo Anthony is going to sign with the Houston Rockets. And if you want to hear an hour of that, then ignore our pleas here to engage. Get engaged, folks. We have a big mountain to climb. We're up against an opponent that's got about a 100-year start on us. we have to look in terms of the next 50 years, the next 5 years. We've got to have states prevailing. You've got to help it happen. Until we meet again next week, I'm Mark. She's Suzanne. Have a great weekend.